After being deceived by the people she loved the most, a woman with a phobia of clowns decides to take revenge and ends up becoming a member of a group of reactionary rebels. Today we're going to recap the 7th season of the series, American Horror Story, Cult, from 2017. On November 8, 2016, following the election of Donald Trump as President of the United States, American citizens split into two groups. While some people, like Kai Anderson, are joyfully celebrating the victory of their new president, Allie Mayfair is in complete despair and Ivy, her wife, is trying to console her. Together, they have a son called Ozzy and the young man is very frightened to see his mother so upset. Then, seeing the frightened child, Allie manages to calm down and reassure the young man. Unlike his brother, Winter wanted Hillary Clinton to have won the election, so Kai never misses an opportunity to gloat over his candidate's victory. One day, a couple are having a picnic in the park when a clown called Twisty appears. Frightened, the young man takes a gun out of his backpack and shoots the man, but the clown is still alive and attacks him. As she watches her boyfriend being brutally eliminated, the young woman screams for help and runs away in terror, but ends up being chased and hides inside an abandoned trailer. Just as he is about to give up his hunt, the clown hears the girl trying to call the police and manages to find her. This is one of the stories described in Ozzy's favorite horror comic, but when she sees the clown on the cover of the magazine, Allie goes into complete despair, as she has a phobia of clowns. Immediately, the young man goes to call Ivy to comfort her and the woman manages to help her wife calm down. To treat her phobias and mental disorders, Allie visits her psychoanalyst every week. Dr. Vincent helps her deal with her fears and prescribes an anxiety medication for her. After her appointment, Allie goes to the supermarket and, while shopping, she gets the distinct impression that she is being followed by clowns. Terrified, the woman walks down the aisles towards the cashier and comes across the most terrifying scene she has ever seen in her life. Suddenly, other monsters start appearing and she tries to escape from the masked creatures chasing her. During a panic attack, Allie runs back to her car and calls Ivy for help. Looking in the rearview mirror, the woman realizes that there is a clown hiding in the back seat and ends up hitting a lamppost. The next day, a policeman comes to her house and tells Ivy that all they saw on the security cameras was Allie screaming and throwing bottles around the market. The couple own a renowned restaurant in the city and, since Donald Trump's election, Allie has been unable to attend work. As well as affecting the family business, Allie's phobias are also getting in the way of her relationship with Ivy. The first step for them to get back to their routine is to find a nanny for Ozzy and Winter. Kai's younger sister ends up being the one chosen after interviews. When she discovers that the young man likes horror stories, the woman shows him some violent videos on the internet and claims that these images will help Ozzy become a strong person, but her real aim is to turn the young man into someone as perverse as she is. While alone in his room, Ozzy hears a noise and, looking out of the window, sees an ice cream truck parked across the street. From inside the vehicle, some people dressed as clowns come out, and the young man realizes that his mother was telling the truth. Hours later, when Allie and Ivy arrive home after work, they see several police cars and are relieved to discover that their son is fine. The neighbors who live across the street were eliminated that night and Ozzy claims it was the clowns who attacked them. As she already knew about the plan, Winter took the young man to see the brutal scene that eliminated the couple who lived in the house, but when the young man goes to his room, the nanny says that none of it happened and it was all a figment of Ozzy's fertile imagination. A few days later, a new couple moves into the house and, right away, Allie realizes that something is wrong with them. During a visit to her new neighbors with her wife, Allie discovers that they are an unusual couple. Harrison is gay and Meadow doesn't like to be touched. They met in high school and agreed to stay together if they couldn't get married by the time they were 35. Once a week, Harrison can go out and do whatever he wants and, on the other days, they live like a normal couple. That night, Ivy receives a notification on her cell phone and discovers that the restaurant's alarm has gone off, so Allie offers to go there and turn it off. At that moment, the woman hears a noise coming from the fridge and decides to go in to investigate. Suddenly, she sees the body of one of her employees hanging and, in trying to get him out, Allie accidentally eliminates him. After this brutal murder, she realizes that the country is becoming increasingly dangerous and decides to buy a gun to defend herself if necessary. That day, the woman receives a visit from Kai, who is in the neighborhood to get new supporters for his campaign, since he is running for city council. However, Allie doesn't agree with Kai's ideas and orders him to leave. That night, the town's power goes out and Allie is alone at home with her son. Terrified, she calls Ivy for help, but her cell phone battery runs out. Worried about his wife, Ivy asks Peter to bring her a charger and a few other things. Meanwhile, Allie is locking all the doors and windows, but soon realizes that it's too late, as the clowns have already invaded her house. Terrified, The woman takes the pistol she recently bought and goes after the intruders. After waking Ozzy, she goes downstairs and walks towards the door. At this point, Allie comes across Pedro, but doesn't recognize the employee of her restaurant and ends up shooting him. Minutes later, the police arrived at the scene and took the body to the IML. As the city was without electricity and Allie felt threatened in her own home, she is protected by the law, which gives American citizens the right to act in self-defense in this situation. Soon the news of Pedro's elimination spreads through the town and causes outrage among many residents, who unite to protest in front of Allie and Ivy's restaurant. Beverly is the journalist sent to the scene to record a report on the incident and reports that several murders have been taking place in the city in recent days. The woman believes that the police are covering up the fact that there are terrorists on the loose to avoid causing despair among the residents, and this suspicion makes Allie even more anxious. After a family dinner, Allie and her wife come home and see a bloodstain on their door. Immediately, Ozzy goes in to see if his guinea pig is all right and finds the animal inside the microwave. When the rodent's body explodes, the young man is terrified and Allie goes after her neighbors, believing that they were responsible. After entering the house, she attacks Harrison and asks why they have broken into her house. She believes that her neighbors are trying to punish her for Pedro's elimination, but soon discovers that the smiley face drawn on her door was not made by them. That's the same mark found on the houses of the couples who have been eliminated in recent weeks, so Allie begins to believe that she will be the next victim. Seeing her wife's impulsive attitude, Ivy says she can't live with it any longer, because Allie is putting everything they've built together at risk. As they're leaving, Ozzy finds the same mark drawn on their neighbor's wall, but Allie decides not to tell them what she saw. Tired of dealing with her wife's psychotic episodes, Ivy decides to leave and takes Ozzy with her. Now that she's home alone, Allie's episodes of psychosis are getting worse and worse. When she looks in the mirror, she sees insects crawling on her neck and ends up hurting her own skin. When she reveals to his psychiatrist what happened that morning, Dr. Vincent realizes how much Ivy and Ozzy's departure is affecting his patient. Since the day her wife left, Allie has been banned from having custody of her son and can only see him during supervised visits. What Allie can't imagine is that this is all part of Ivy's plan, who has decided to join Winter and Kai in a revolution. Since the last election, the psychopath began to gather a group of people who felt excluded to fight against the government and spread terror. To win the loyalty of his allies, Kai used their greatest vulnerabilities and brainwashed them. This group of rebels also includes Allie's new neighbors and Beverly Hope, the journalist who suffers prejudice from her boss because she is black. Determined to get back at him, she and the rest of Kai's followers join forces to break into Bob Thompson's house and, when he is attacked, the man reveals that he has a slave trapped in the attic. Immediately, the rebels go there and find the man. Despite everyone voting to free him, Kai decides to eliminate the hostage in a cowardly way, which causes some of his team members to revolt. He then finishes the job and stabs Bob while one of his followers records the brutal scene. When her boss is about to be eliminated, Beverly removes her mask and eliminates the man with an axe to the head. Hearing strange noises coming from her neighbor's house, Allie decides to go there to investigate and discovers that Harrison is digging a grave where Meadow's body is. Terrified, Allie runs back home and locks all the doors while she calls the police, but they don't answer. She then decides to call Ivy, but the woman doesn't believe what her wife is saying. Suddenly, Meadow appears at the window and starts shouting for help. The woman claims that she is being chased by a group of rebels that Winter and Ivy are part of. She is then captured and Allie begins to put the pieces of the puzzle together. All these attacks that Kai is orchestrating are serving to increase his popularity and, if everything continues to go according to plan, he will be elected as a councilman, as his speech is based on increasing the security of the American people. That night, he gathers his followers to get rid of one of the members of the group, because RJ showed hesitation during their last attack. The idea of eliminating one of the members of their team doesn't sit well with Ivy and Winter, but they are forced to take part in yet another brutal episode and help eliminate RJ with nails in his head. As a teenager, Kai lived in a house with his parents. One day, he saw his mother shoot his father and then take her own life. Desperate, he asked his older brother to help him deal with the situation and, instead of calling the police, Vincent decided to cover up his parents' elimination so as not to jeopardize his career. Determined to gather more information about the supposed rebel group her wife is part of, Allie breaks into the neighbor's house to save Meadow and manages to free her. However, before the two can escape, they are caught by Harrison and Samuels, so Allie attacks them with pepper spray and runs to the car. With nowhere else to go, she drives to the restaurant and questions Meadow. During the conversation, Allie discovers that all the break-ins at her house were real and made possible by Ivy. Her wife wanted to make her look crazy so that she could separate and have full custody of Ozzy, as well as becoming the sole owner of the restaurant. Upon hearing this, Allie refuses to believe that Ivy would be capable of doing something so evil, so Meadow reveals that she, as well as several other people, have been recruited by Kai to spread terror throughout the city. Hours ago, Meadow discovered that she was only being used by Kai, so she decided to leave the group. However, the psychopath couldn't risk his secrets getting out, so he ordered Harrison and Samuels to eliminate the woman. After hearing this story, Allie takes Meadow to Vincent's office and asks the psychiatrist to listen to her. Meanwhile, she goes to Sally Keffler, a candidate for city council, and asks for her help in exposing Kai. To Allie's surprise, Sally believes her story and says she has already realized that her competitor is not a good person. Just then, Kai and his gang show up and, while Sally grabs her gun, Allie runs for cover. Soon after, Sally is captured and shot with her own gun. When the group leaves, Allie returns to Vincent's office and discovers that Meadow has refused to talk about the supposed rebel group that tried to eliminate her. Instead, the woman leaves and Vincent tries to convince Allie that she needs hospitalization, as he believes the woman is suffering from psychotic breaks. The next day, Kai makes his last official statement before the elections and Allie decides to go there in order to unmask him. But when she gets there, the woman runs into Meadow, who shoots one of the voters and then shoots Kai. After eliminating some of the people who had come to see him, the woman took her own life. In an attempt to stop her, Allie ended up grabbing the gun and was arrested by the police. After suffering an assassination attempt, Kai became even more popular and his victory as a city councilor was guaranteed. When men from different corners of the country show up to support him, the psychopath begins to exclude the women who were part of his group and Beverly realizes it. So she enlists the help of Bibi Babbitt and meets up with the other girls on the team to come up with a plan for revenge against Kai and the other men in his group. The first to be ambushed is Harrison, who collapses after being hit on the head. When he wakes up, the man is tied to a table and has his limbs cut off with a chainsaw. After putting Allie in a sanatorium for 3 weeks against her will, Vincent decides to take her out because he has discovered that his patient is telling the truth. Now that Kai has hundreds of followers, his brother realizes that there is something wrong with him and everything makes sense when he discovers that Kai is the man who has been terrorizing his patient. In an attempt to make up for his mistake, Vincent decides to tell Allie the truth and shows her a photo that proves that Kai is his brother. At that moment, the woman discovers that Winter, her son's nanny, is also that lunatic's sister and blames Vincent for ruining her life, since it was thanks to the psychiatrist's diagnosis that the woman lost custody of her son. Upon hearing these accusations, the man assumes his guilt, then promises that he will make things right and send Kai to jail. That night, Allie invites the psychopath to dinner and claims to have some information that he'd like to know. However, in exchange for this, Kai will have to find a way to return custody of Ozzy to her. After receiving confirmation that she will have her son back, the woman reveals that Vincent is planning to have Kai committed and the psychopath realizes that Allie is different. After months of being terrorized and betrayed by the people she trusted the most, the woman was cured of her phobias and is now afraid of nothing. After discovering that his brother was plotting against him, Kai orders his men to capture him and takes the opportunity to execute Beverly in the same ceremony. That night, the psychopath rips off Vincent's finger and then plunges a knife into his neck. Seeing his older brother eliminated in such a cruel way, Winter despairs and then realizes that not even the bond of blood can stop Kai from hurting anyone. Then it's Beverly's turn to be punished for hatching a plot against her leader and Kai orders her to be taken to the isolation room because he knows he'll need her in the future. After the ceremony, all the members take off their masks and Kai introduces Allie as a new member of the team. When she runs into her ex-wife, Ivy has nowhere else to run and has to explain why she betrayed her. At that moment, Allie discovers that the person she trusted most in the world had a great hatred for her and was capable of causing countless eliminations just to punish her. Minutes later, Winter shows up with Ozzy and Allie has the chance to hug her son after several weeks of not being able to see him. When the young man goes to his room, Winter asks for forgiveness for all the harm he has caused Allie and says that they need to run away, because Kai is capable of eliminating anyone who opposes him. The next morning, Allie and Ivy prepare to flee the country with Ozzy. Before leaving, Allie goes to pick up her son from school and discovers that he isn't there because he's been picked up by the nanny. Immediately, the couple drive to Kai's house and Allie attacks Winter to get her to tell her where Ozzy is. She then discovers that the young man is in the basement having a conversation with Kai, who claims to be the young man's biological father. The psychopath tells her that he is a sperm donor at the clinic where Allie had her insemination and prevents her from taking Ozzy away, because he says he needs some time to talk to his son. Knowing they won't be able to get out of that house alive if they try to take Ozzy, Ivy and Allie decide to leave and say they'll be back the next morning to pick him up. When the couple return home, Allie makes dinner while Ivy goes through some documents to try and find out if Ozzy is really Kai's son. At this point, Ali tries to reassure her wife and claims to have a plan to save the young man. During dinner, she pours Ivy a glass of wine and waits for the woman to drink it before telling her about her plan for revenge. When she was admitted to the sanatorium, Ali had the opportunity to rethink her fears and decided to replace them with a very strong feeling of revenge. Instead of giving in to the thoughts that made her want to take her own life, the woman waited patiently until she had the chance to eliminate each person who had caused her harm. Ali could never forget the pain of knowing that Ivy had tried to drive her crazy in order to get custody of Ozzy. So she waited for the right moment to take revenge and poisoned the drink to complete her vendetta against Ivy. The next morning, when she returns to pick up Ozzy, Ali discovers that the young man is not at home and goes to the insemination clinic to see the photo of her son's biological father. When she finds out that Kai is not the young man's biological father, she is relieved and returns home to make dinner, as she will have a special guest that evening. After changing the photo in the records, the woman hands the file to Kai and confirms that Ozzy is her son, because she knows that this way the psychopath won't do him any harm. With the promise that the three of them can be a family, Ali convinces Kai to help her get rid of Ivy's body and then finds her son. As the elections for Member of Parliament approach, Kai begins to take drastic measures to spread terror and decides to sacrifice one of his own followers in order to pass himself off as a victim. When he realizes that he has been tricked and is about to be eliminated, Gary asks what he did to deserve such a fate, and Kai says that the man did nothing wrong. Gary has always been one of his most loyal subjects, so he would have to sacrifice himself to ensure that Kai's plan succeeds. The next morning, his bloodied body was found by a woman, next to a message that had been sent directly to the townspeople. Hours later, Beverly announces the crime on TV and interviews Councilman Kai, who says he is very shaken by the elimination of his aide. As she listens to the psychopath give his testimony, the journalist is completely terrified, because she knows that at any moment she could become a victim of that maniac. Realizing that Beverly is becoming a submissive woman destroyed by fear, the exact opposite of what she used to be, Winter decides to help her escape and gives her a train ticket. However, Beverly suspects that Kai has sent his sister to test her and says that she will never leave him. After eliminating so many victims, Kai begins to suspect that he is being spied on, and Ali adds to his paranoia by saying that she has found a microphone hidden in his room. That afternoon, the man receives a visit from Bibi, who, after noticing the contempt with which Kai treats the female sex, decides to eliminate him. However, before the woman can shoot him, Ali appears and eliminates her. At that moment, Ali wins Kai's complete trust and becomes one of his main supporters. In an attempt to look his best for election day, Kai decides to shave his hair and enlists the help of his sister to do it. During the conversation, he reveals that he has found the train ticket that Winter bought to escape and considers her a traitor. Then the psychopath orders his men to take her to the courtroom. Thanks to the microphone that Ali has found, Kai begins to think that Winter has been recruited by the police to spy on him and decides to eliminate her with his own hands. After witnessing his leader being able to eliminate his own sister, Speedwagon rushes to his car and gets rid of the evidence of his betrayal. However, Ali already knows that he is the real spy and has framed Winter just to get revenge, as she was the one who convinced Ivy to join Kai's group. The young man was caught by the police with illegal substances and would be arrested if he didn't agree to join Kai's group and spy on him. At this point, Ali discovers that Speedwagon has numerous recordings of the atrocities committed by the psychopath and decides to eliminate him. She then reveals to Kai the identity of the real traitor and claims that Winter was innocent. Discovering that he has eliminated his sister for no reason, Kai despairs and Ali tries to console him. Encouraged by the woman, the man decides to continue his plan to spread terror throughout the city and attack pregnant women at night. However, before the group could leave the hideout, Ali went out to talk to the FBI officers who were hiding in the neighborhood and gave the signal for them to break into the house. During the exchange of fire, some of Kai's followers were eliminated and others took their own lives to avoid having to face the consequences of their actions. When she sees the psychopath being arrested, Beverly feels immense happiness, even though she knows that her fate won't be the best either. While being taken to the police station, Kai spots Ali and realizes that it was she who handed him over to the police. Furious, the man vows to eliminate her. After turning in the city's biggest criminal, Ali came to be seen as a hero and, little by little, her life began to settle down. A few weeks later, she was back working in her restaurant, which is more successful than ever. One night, she receives a visit from Beverly and discovers that Kai has taken the blame for all the crimes his gang has committed. Thanks to this, no suspicions have been attributed to Ali and Beverly. A few months later, Ali runs for Michigan State Senator, saying that she will represent and defend women's rights. Determined to get his revenge, Kai enlists the help of policewoman Gloria to escape from prison and eliminates one of the inmates to fake his elimination. After disfiguring Trevor's face, he puts on a police uniform and leaves the prison with Gloria, who accompanies him to the place where the candidates will give their speeches. Before going into public, Ali receives the news that Kai has been found eliminated in prison, but soon suspects that this was just a strategy by the psychopath to escape. During the candidate's speech, Kai appears and picks up a gun given to him by Gloria. However, when he tries to shoot Ali, he discovers that the gun is unloaded and Beverly shoots him in the head. Instead of taking revenge on the woman who betrayed him, Kai helped to get her elected and Ali was finally able to achieve everything she wanted. One night, after putting Ozzy to bed, the senator goes to meet a group of women who, like her, want to change the world and ends up becoming the leader of a dangerous movement, just like Kai. So what did you think of this series? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more series recaps. See you next time.